Hey there, it's Dusty Thunder. I got a stanky story for you right now. This one actually comes from Wedding Shaming and is titled The Bride Who Gambled on a Fart and Lost in a Big Way. Trigger warning, this is detailed and gross. If you have a weak stomach, turn away now. I work as an event planner. It was the wedding of two fairly wealthy families, and the bride had decided on a rather rural, shabby chic aesthetic. The reception, she decided, would take place on family property in a historic barn. This caused a huge flurry of issues, between having to have the barn cleaned, the fact that we needed auxiliary tents as the barn wasn't large enough, and the fact that the property lacked electricity and running water. The latter was solved with a bank of generators, tubs of water for catering, and a side tent with porta-johns hidden inside. That sounds expensive. I'm just saying. All for the aesthetic? Come on now. The bride had, to be honest, been quite the bridezilla, but it's my job to deal with those things. At this point, the ceremony had ended, cocktail hour is shutting down, professional photos were taken. We were prepping to transition to the entrance of the bridal party, which would be followed immediately by first dance and cake cutting. During this, the dinner would be staged, so every aspect was being fairly carefully timed out. I was speaking to the caterer when I happened to glance over and see the most curious blend of expressions pass over the bride's face, and she frantically waved down my assistant. A few moments later, my headset beeped on, and my assistant said, "We have an issue." Turns out the bride had gambled on a fart and lost in a big way. Now the bride was wearing a huge, full ball gown with a fitted bones strapless top and in a sort of embellished mess. Underneath, she had a shaper garment and hoops and slips. We had already realized there was zero way of getting her to the bathroom. We had issues getting her into a limo, and having her use the porta-johns meant one of us would have to get extra personal. That was my assistant's job. I radioed to everybody to expect a 15-minute delay, and they headed towards the tent. The 15 minutes passed, then 20. Finally, my earpiece beeps on. The previous issue was more than we anticipated. I ran over to find my assistant looking horrified. The bride, it turns out, had been using some health shakes in an attempt to fix last-minute bloating. This had mixed poorly with the cocktails from earlier, and she had eaten a fairly decent breakfast. The substance that had come out of her body as a result defied explanation. It was slimy, oily even, with stringy bits and the consistency of hair gel. Not only had it been a rather profound accident, but the smell was unrivaled. Generally, a substance no human body should emit. But the thing that set it over the edge was the shaper the bride wore was a latex deal that came down over the thighs and up to her bra. Oh no! She shit in the body balloon? She shit in the body balloon? Waterproof. The poo had just sort of filled it, like a water balloon of horror. My assistant had opened up the snap crotch and just released the evil trickling down the bride's thighs. My assistant quickly sealed it back up, and she and the bride vainly tried to wipe up the goo dry with toilet paper, but it's still inside. It's like a wetsuit.
A reverse wetsuit.
This just spread it around, so they decided to give up. Now I have a shell-shocked assistant and a crying bride. You can smell her 4 feet away. This bride is just flipping out that she's making her guests wait, that she has a choreographed dance waiting to happen, and she needs to be introduced now. I'm just looking at her manicured nails. Residue of diarrhea are just embedded in her nail bed. I start trying to scrape the poo out with a fabric stain wipe while the bride insists the show must go on immediately. I give in that this is an issue which will have to wait and signal to start our introductions. The groom looks vaguely disconcerted by his new wife's odor, but I tell my assistant to distract him until they take the floor. Introductions happen, the dance starts, and we find some fresh horror. The dance was a choreographed affair, and as the groom spun his bride around, hand on her waist, he is squishing the poo up the insides of her waist trainer, up and out the back of the waistband. To our horror, we watch as an oily stain spreads across the mid-back of the gown. As we are still cringing from this, the groom sets his hand firmly in the middle of the poo stain. Action had to be taken as soon as the couple left the dance floor. It was obvious, and I left my assistant in charge while I made preparations. She kept radioing me. The stain was spreading. She could smell the poo from her spot by the DJ. They were cutting the cake now. They were feeding the cake to each other, both now with stained fingers. Not cake stained, shite stained. Each was looking downright repulsed. Wait, hold it. They were hand feeding each other cake with poo fingers?
We've got a code brown.
Oh no! Oh no! 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 That's a Schmidt. Oh! Oh. As they left the dance floor, I had someone rush wet naps to the groom and bring me to the bride. The support tent was closed down for me. I pulled the tub of clean water from the caterer. She walked in to find me in dish gloves and a poncho like an American psycho. The 5 minutes I was sponging down a sobbing, naked bride while I questioned every life decision that led to this point. The diarrhea was everywhere, spread in a thin layer across her body. It may be the most disgusting thing I've ever had to deal with. With her clean, I threw away the waist shaper and scrubbed down the $15,000 wedding gown back in a plastic basin. The inner lining was a loss, and I cut it out completely. Dressed again and offered a Xanax, the bride was a little worse for wear, except for missing her dinner. I'm going to go ahead and say that was probably a good thing that she missed her dinner. That's just more ammo. You don't need more ammo. She's Winchester. The support tent smelled like a sewer and was just closed for the remainder of the event. The groom was a sport, never directly saying anything but asking if we could cancel the garter toss, as he really didn't want to go under her skirt. Pictures from the event appeared in a magazine. Still photos, away from the smell, were beautiful. Yeah. I want to know at what point, there's a top comment here, but I want to know at what point did this happen? Right
after the I do.
Okay, so right after the I do's, she's like, I do. And then made this face. But if she had like a plasticky, rubbery, like body wetsuit thing going on and shat herself inside of it, wouldn't there be some sound effects happening?
I think she was
Away from the people, away from everybody, but still she would know because there were like sound effects of like, imagine shitting inside of a balloon. Some sound is going to happen.
I think she knew that's where she called.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so she did it, and then she was like, oh, God, never trust a fart. Never trust a fart.
We've learned anything today.
That's right. That's the thing we've learned. Top comment, the professionalism. I would have walked out a bit of idiot handling is to be expected, but this is way too much. That shit show wasn't an unfortunate case of food poisoning. That dumbass bride took laxatives on her wedding day in a venue with portable toilets. No matter how much the wedding planner got paid, it wasn't enough. Here. And this is one of the many reasons I don't do wedding photography or video. Not that I would be pulled into this kind of thing, but shit happens.